I arrived in Kyoto in the middle of summer, the kind of heat that clings to your skin like a wet cloth. The air was thick with the scent of tatami and street incense. I'd come here on a 6-month exchange program, studying traditional Japanese music at a private institute. As a composition major obsessed with lost sounds and cultural artifacts, it felt like the right kind of pilgrimage. The apartment was old, wooden, and tucked in the far end of the Jin district. It had sliding shoji doors, creaking floorboards, and a stairwell that whispered under every step. Locals had avoided renting it. The landlord, an elderly woman with cloudy eyes, handed me the keys without a smile. Top floor, don't open the window at night, and if you hear music, she hesitated. Do not answer it. I chuckled politely. Maybe it was a superstition. Kyoto was steeped in ghost stories, especially in places like this. But I had grown up on logic and string theory. The kind of horror I believed in was dissonance in composition, not spirits on rooftops. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked my equipment, a battered laptop, a portable mic, and my field recorder. I had a plan to collect ambient sounds of the city and reinterpret them through modern arrangements. The cicadas buzzed like radio static. The wind hissed through the cracked window pane. Perfect material. But at 3 a.m., I woke up, not from a dream, not from movement, from sound. A shamisen, faint, almost imperceptible, 3 string tones sliding, upward, then descending with sorrow. It wasn't melodic, more like someone weeping through wood. I sat up in bed, disoriented. It wasn't from another apartment, and definitely not from a speaker. It felt above me. On the roof, I froze, then remembered what the landlord had said. Do not answer it. What did that even mean? I leaned toward the wall and pressed my ear against the cool wood. The music stopped. Silence, pure and thick. And then the unmistakable creak of footsteps, directly above my ceiling. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Morning came, and Kyoto felt normal again. I convinced myself it was a dream. Maybe a neighbor playing a shamisen too late. Maybe a sound drifting through the alleys at the Music Institute. I asked one of the local students about it. Oh, said Hiro, a percussion major. You heard the rooftop ghost, huh? I laughed nervously. You're joking. He didn't laugh back. They say if you hear the shamisen at night, it's not a person, it's the soul of a blind geisha. She was murdered on a rooftop in Jin 100 years ago. Every year, she calls someone new, calls them. She wants an audience. But if you respond, if you say anything, even think anything, she knows you're listening. And if you acknowledge her, you'll hear her again. Closer. I swallowed hard. So what happens if you keep listening? No one knows. Because they never show up to school again. That night, I stayed in bed with headphones on, noise canceling, full volume. I told myself I wouldn't give in to ghost stories. But at exactly 3 a.m., the music slipped in again, through the walls, through my skin, through the silence between thoughts. This time, the shamisen strings were slower, sadder. And then, I heard a voice, soft, breathy, like a hum. I didn't understand the words, maybe old Kyoto dialect, but the tone was unmistakable. It wasn't just a song, it was a lullaby. And like an idiot, I whispered, beautiful. I didn't mean to say it, it just came out. The music stopped instantly. The silence that followed was so sharp it felt like a blade in my eardrum. Then, I heard something else. One long, slow creak from the rooftop above. Then another. Something had heard me, and it was now walking closer. I stayed up until the sun rose, heart racing, hands shaking. I packed my bag and rushed back to the institute. Hiro took one look at my face and paled. You responded, didn't you? I said something, just one word. He backed away like I was contagious. You need to get out of that building. I tried to laugh. Come on, man. It's a ghost story. It's not. He reached into his bag and pulled out an old prayer tag. Tie this to your window, and don't sleep, not tonight, not at 3 a.m. That night, I didn't just hear the music. I heard footsteps in the stairwell, soft, deliberate, barefoot, climbing up, one step at a time, and the shamisen kept playing. Each note felt like it was being played inside my skull. I tried to cover. My ears didn't work. I turned on every light, Didn't help. Then I heard a knock. Not at the door, on the window. But I was on the 5th floor. There's no balcony, no ledge. Just a flat rooftop with a crumbling wooden edge. The knock came again. 3 times. Then a whisper through the crack in the window frame. Won't you come listen properly? I stood frozen, staring at the window. The whisper was still echoing in my head, not through sound, but somewhere deeper, like it had bypassed my ears and curled up in my spine. Won't you come listen properly? I backed away, knocking over my chair, my voice caught in my throat. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. There shouldn't be anyone outside my window. This was the 5th floor. There was no fire escape, no ledge. Nothing but open air and crumbling roof tiles. The knock came again, soft, slow. 3 taps, deliberate, then silence. I grabbed the omamori, the paper charm Hiro gave me, hands trembling, and tied it to the window latch with the nearest shoelace I could find. My fingers fumbled with the knot, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw movement outside, a shadow gliding just past the window's edge. But when I blinked, it was gone, and so was the music. The next morning, I didn't go to class. I couldn't. I hadn't slept. My eyes burned. Every creak of the old floorboards felt like someone creeping closer. I called Hiro. He answered on the first ring. Did you tie it? Yes, you need to leave that building. It's marked now. Marked. Once she knows you're listening, the building becomes hers too. That's why it's always abandoned at the top floors. People don't stay. She doesn't like sharing. Who is she? Hiro. There was a long pause on the other end. Then Hiro whispered, "Oh, shakuhachi. That's a flute, not a shamisen." She wasn't named for the instrument. She was named for the sound. They say she played like a flute when she died. Hollow, breathless, her neck was snapped. She choked out her final note, and it's been echoing ever since. I closed my eyes. My body felt cold. Why me? She chooses musicians, foreigners, outsiders, people who don't belong. She sees them as unfinished songs. I tried to check into a hostel downtown, but they were full, every one of them. Some summer festival had the city overflowing with tourists. I had no choice but to return to the apartment. I bought salt, incense, 3 more charms. I didn't know what worked, but layering them seemed smarter than guessing wrong. I poured salt across the window frame and burned incense at the door. I kept the lights on. I set up my audio recorder. I told myself, I'll document everything. That's what a composer would do. That's what a rational mind does. But at 3 a.m., nothing happened. No footsteps, no shamisen, no knocks, just silence. And in some twisted way, that scared me more. Because silence means withdrawal. And when something pulls back, it's only so it can return harder. Day 3, I returned to the institute briefly to grab a few things. Everyone was acting strange. I could feel it. Whispers in the hallway. Hiro wouldn't meet my eyes. When I confronted him, he finally said, "You've been hearing her for 3 nights, right?" "Yeah. She's almost done with you." "Done." "She plays in sets. 3 nights of playing. Then 1 night of silence. The calm before the 4th. What happens on the 4th?" He looked away. "That's when you play." That night, the silence stretched like a rubber band, tight, tense, waiting to snap. I sat in the center of the room, surrounded by audio gear. My recorder was on. The microphone lights blinked steadily. But I wasn't alone. At 3:01 a.m., the air grew colder, not a breeze. More like the heat had been sucked out of the room by something breathing too deep. Then I heard it. Not music, not footsteps. Breathing from the ceiling, from the walls, from inside the mirror on the dresser. I looked at my reflection and saw something off. Not the usual uncanny valley mismatch. My reflection was smiling. IWES and single quotes T. Behind it. A shape moved. I turned to look. Nothing there. But in the reflection, a pale woman in a black kimono stood behind me, head tilted, shamisen in hand. Her eyes were empty, her mouth sewn shut, but the music was coming from her, somehow, impossibly. She was still playing. I spun around, heart hammering. Empty room, no one behind me. But the music was back, and it was coming from the inside of the recorder. I lunged forward, unplugging it. But the music didn't stop. I ripped the batteries out. Still, the strings played on suddenly. The mic, completely disconnected, flickered back on. The lights glowed blood red, and through the speakers, I heard her voice. It was no longer singing. It was speaking. "You've listened long enough. Now, it's your turn." I couldn't move. My feet were ice. My mouth wouldn't open. Then the door creaked, slowly, painfully, no wind, no motion. Just the door opening wide on its own. Outside, the hallway was black, except for the steps. Bare footprints appeared, one by one, pressing into the dust of the wood floor, walking toward me. I backed up until my spine hit the wall. The recorder, now dead, gave one last hiss, then silence. And from just beyond the doorway in that endless black, 3 soft notes on the shamisen, then a whisper, "Won't you come and play?" The shamisen notes faded into a trembling silence. I didn't remember standing. I didn't remember walking. But somehow I was at the apartment door open now, gaping like a mouth in the dark. The corridor beyond stretched impossibly far, longer than it ever had before. Footprints trailed inward from the hallway, barefoot and damp. They stopped at my threshold. I should have closed the door, locked it, blocked it with furniture. But I stepped outside instead. The air was thick with incense, dust, and something older, something rotting, like time itself had gone sour. Faint, breathy notes drifted from above. A melody played just beyond hearing, like a lullaby meant for someone else. Each note made my teeth ache. Each one felt familiar. I moved down the corridor slowly. My feet moved without permission. At the end of the hall, a girl stood beneath the flickering light. Her head was tilted, her hair long and soaked black, as if she'd just stepped out of a thunderstorm. She wore a school uniform, one sleeve torn. Her arms dangled at her sides like broken marionette strings. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She just stared. I stopped, and she smiled. "You heard it too," she whispered. Her voice was like dry paper, too many syllables folded into too little space. I backed up. "Don't answer," I said to myself. Her mouth twitched. "It's too late for that." I turned and ran back toward my apartment. But the hallway didn't end. No doors, no walls, just an infinite corridor, breathing around me. My phone had no signal. My watch blinked 3:01 a.m., frozen. No seconds ticked by. I wasn't in my building anymore. I don't know how long I walked, minutes, hours. Eventually, I saw a staircase, a narrow, rusted emergency exit spiraling upward toward the roof. It wasn't supposed to be there. This building had no roof access, but the shamisen played above. I could hear it clearly now. Plucked strings, steady and slow, like it was counting down. I should have turned back, but where? There was nowhere left to go. So I climbed. Each step felt wrong, too tall, too narrow, like they weren't made for human feet. When I reached the roof, I almost didn't realize it. The sky was completely black, no stars, no city lights, no air. And in the middle of the rooftop sat her. She didn't turn to face me. Her back was straight, posture perfect, knees tucked beneath her. She wore a ceremonial black kimono stitched with silver threads that shimmered with movement, not reflections, but actual movement. The threads slithered like worms under skin. Her hair flowed down her back, impossibly long, spilling across the floor like a shadow stretched thin. The shamisen was resting in her lap. Her hands moved with precision, fingers gliding over the strings, but there was no sound. The music was coming from me. Every breath I took vibrated with it. Every heartbeat strummed a note. She was playing me. Suddenly, her fingers stopped, and without turning, she whispered, "You brought the sound with you." I couldn't answer. I couldn't even breathe. She tilted her head, listening. "You have music in your blood, a different kind." But still, unfinished, my legs buckled. I dropped to my knees. "Do you want it to stop?" I nodded. "Then, finish the song." She stood slowly, rising like smoke. Her hands reached down, too long, too thin. She placed the shamisen at my feet. It was old, splintered, strings worn down to threads. "Play," she said. I didn't know how. I'd never touched one before. But when I held it, it pulsed. Something moved behind me. Something stirred in the corners of the rooftop. Dozens of shapes, blurry and crawling. emerged from the shadows, not people, not fully, reflections of people, smeared and smudged like they'd melted halfway between worlds. They circled around me, watching, waiting. One of them reached out, a child, his fingers fused together like clay, and whispered, "Play it right, or stay." I plucked a single string. The rooftop quaked. All around me, the shapes screamed, not with mouths, but with sound, as if they were being dragged upward through their own throats. I tried again. A second note, then another. The woman in the black kimono nodded once. "You are becoming." The sky above cracked. The stars bled. Not light, but color. Colors that didn't belong here. Reds to deep. Blues that hurt. Something yellow that made me want to tear out my own eyes. I kept playing. I didn't know what I was doing, but the music came anyway. Not from the strings, from memory, from the sound of my mother's voice humming in the kitchen, from the subway doors hissing open, from the wind that carried the temple bells past my window that first night. And then silence. The woman stepped forward and gently took the shamisen from my hands. Her face now looked like mine. Exactly. Every feature mirrored, like I was staring into a perfect reflection, except her eyes. Her eyes were empty. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she dissolved, not into mist, not into light, but into sound. The rooftop split apart, and I fell. I woke up in my apartment. The morning sun was shining through the window. I checked the time, 6:43 a.m. I was back, or somewhere that looked like back. I checked the recorder, still blank. The microphone light blinked once, then stopped. Asterisk. The morning felt too bright. My kitchen window glared with a kind of sterile light I'd never seen in this building before. Everything was too still. The silence was no longer comforting. It was oppressive, like the apartment was holding its breath. I opened my phone. The screen lit up, but the date was blank. Not wrong. Blank. Just double quotes. No apps worked. No calls could go through. The only thing that seemed alive was the camera. I flipped it on and froze. The camera was pointed at my face, but there was something just behind me. A sliver of black kimono fabric in the corner of the screen. I turned. Nothing. When I turned the camera back to selfie mode, it was gone. But I swear I heard the faintest brush of fingers on the shamisen string, as if it had followed me back. I tried to go outside, down the elevator, through the lobby, out the door, but as I stepped onto the street, everything fell silent again, like the whole world had been muted. The cars moved, pedestrians passed, but none of them made any sound. And then I saw her, a girl standing across the street. Not the same one from before. This one was dressed like she'd just left school, backpack, blazer, bangs perfectly trimmed. She raised her hand and pointed straight at me. I looked behind me. Nothing. Then she mouthed 3 words, "Don't look up." Of course I did. The rooftop of my building was missing. No railing, no satellite dishes, just a smooth, black dome where it had been. Something pressed outward from it, slowly, as if trying to birth itself into this world. Not a figure exactly, more like a reflection that couldn't hold its shape, like sound trying to become flesh. And then it vanished. Back inside, my neighbor knocked. Mr. Ishikawa, 5th floor, retired calligrapher, never spoke more than a few words at a time. He looked pale. I heard the music. He said. I opened my mouth to deny it, but he cut me off. I heard it before. Years ago, in '86, that's when my brother vanished. He reached into his coat and handed me something. An old photograph, creased and torn. 2 young men on a rooftop at sunset. One of them held a shamisen. That was him. After that night, he was changed. He spoke in riddles, dreamed with his eyes open. Then one day, he took the stairs up to the roof and never came back. I asked him why he was telling me now. Ishikawa looked at me with sunken, terrified eyes. Because I heard you last night. You were playing the same song. That night, I stayed up. I locked every door, unplugged every appliance, turned off every light. But at exactly 3 a.m., the shamisen began to play, this time inside the apartment. I followed the sound. It led me to the mirror. Not the bathroom mirror, not the one I'd expect. The microwave. Its dark screen reflected my face, or something close, and in that reflection, I saw her again. The woman in the kimono. She stood behind me. I turned. Nothing. But in the microwave's reflection, she was still there. Closer now. A hand reached out of the glass. I backed away and heard a string snap, not from an instrument, but from inside my own chest. Something pulling apart inside me. And then everything went black. I woke on the rooftop. The city skyline was missing, replaced with endless rows of rooftops, all flat, all identical, stretching in every direction. Each one had a single figure, standing still, facing the horizon. Some were children, some were old, all of them were quiet. I turned and found a mirror placed on the ground, framed in deep lacquered redwood, carved with characters I didn't understand. Inside it, my apartment, my body, me. Looking at the rooftop, that version of me raised a hand slowly, reaching out to touch the glass. So did I. But just before our fingers met, she stepped between us. The woman in the black kimono. She smiled without lips, her eyes now empty sockets filled with flickering candlelight. You look too long, she said. Now, you reflect. She turned and walked away, her form unraveling into strands of music that coiled and echoed endlessly across the rooftops. The version of me in the mirror stood still for a long moment. Then, he blinked. And walked away. I screamed. I banged against the mirror, but it was solid. All I could do was watch as my own stolen body began to live without me. It turned off the lights, cleaned up the apartment, smiled in the reflection, and began tuning a shamisen. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't exist on the rooftops. The sun never rises. The moon never moves. The air doesn't shift. It's like being trapped in a pause between seconds. An eternal rooftop dream where the only thing that changes is me. I'm not the same anymore. I don't sleep. I don't hunger. But I hear the music all the time now. It comes from the others, the silent figures on the rooftops. I finally understood what they were doing. They weren't standing still. They were listening. To the woman. To the Shamisen. To her song. And every night, more of us arrive. One night, someone new appeared. A man in a soaked suit, clutching a train map. He blinked at the endless skyline, confused, scared. I saw the moment it hit him, that he'd crossed into this place, that he was no longer real. He ran. Some try that. I did, too, at first. But no matter where you go, the rooftops never change. You just come back to where you started. Eventually, you stop running. You listen. Because that's all there is. And yet, I felt something different in me. A question, a glitch. Some part of me refused to accept this. And then I remembered the mirror. Not the microwave. Not the bathroom. The mirror on the rooftop. The one I came through. I went back to it. It was still there, dusty, cracked, leaning against a pipe like a discarded prop. Its frame was darker now, the lacquer faded and flaking. But it still reflected something, and what it showed broke me. My body, my old body, was living without me. It had friends, a new job, a woman in his life. He smiled in ways I never did. He tuned the shamisen every night, but never played it, not fully. He was waiting, and then he looked straight into the mirror, straight at me. He raised a finger to his lips. Shh. That night, the music changed. It was the same melody, the haunting, plucked shamisen tune, but now it had a rhythm, a structure. And for the first time, lyrics. They came from her. The woman in the black kimono walked among us, stepping silently from rooftop to rooftop, singing in a voice made of ash and echo. The lyrics weren't in any language I knew, but I felt their meaning crawl into my bones. Those who hear must heed. Those who heed must hush. Those who speak are lost. And then she turned her eyes on me. She beckoned. I followed. She brought me to the edge, a rooftop unlike the others. This one overlooked something I hadn't seen before. A door, a single shoji door, standing in the air, unattached to walls or frame. It glowed faintly, like moonlight filtered through water. She gestured to it. Return if you must, but take the song with you. I didn't understand. I begged her. I spoke. I asked, why me? Why show me the way back? She tilted her head and said the only English she'd ever spoken. You listened longer than most. I stepped through the door. And fell. I woke in my bed. The apartment was dark. My ears rang. My lungs burned like I hadn't used them in years. The mirror on my wall was shattered. And beside it, sitting upright on the floor, was the shamisen, untouched, perfectly tuned. There was no note, no explanation, just the silence. But I knew what I had to do. Now I walked the streets of Kyoto at night, not to run from her, but to warn the others. There are signs, subtle ones. The smell of incense in an empty elevator, a rooftop shadow that moves when it shouldn't, a string plucked in the distance when no one's there. And if you ever hear the shamisen at 3 a.m., do not respond. I still see her sometimes, not in dreams, in reflections. Windows, puddles, the glint off my phone screen. She watches to make sure I carry the song, to ensure I never break the rules, because I came back, but not empty-handed. I brought her melody with me. And now, sometimes when I'm alone, I catch myself humming it.